everybody. It is Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern, one of my favorite times of the week. It is time for a Sales Logic. Hanging out here with my partner, Mark Hunter. Mark, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, and I'm hanging out with you, Meridith, Elliott, Powell. It's always good to see you on a Saturday morning. It's been a crazy week for both of us for reasons we won't bother to go into, but we got a great show. Let's see. The new rules of outbound prospecting. Does prospecting even exist anymore? Well, we know it exists, but man, is anybody being successful? We're going to talk about that. We've got a great book and a lightning round, top 10 ways to drive inbound leads. So let's dive into it. The new rules of outbound prospecting. What's your take?
Well, I got to admit, we got the question on this week, and then I did on my other podcast, Ask for Change. I got the opportunity to interview just somebody we both admire, and that is Jason Bay. And I don't know anybody with the Outbound Squad. I don't know anybody who understands more about outbound selling than Jason Bay. I mean, he not only trains it and teaches it, but he spends so much time researching and studying. And I just thought the conversation that I had with him just about how much has changed. And I don't know about you, but every single sales professional I talk to is struggling with prospecting. They're definitely doing it, but trying to get through the door with the decision maker right now, trying to get anybody to respond is incredibly difficult. What do you see?
Well, I see that too. And hey, Jason Bay is a great, great friend, great guy. Nobody knows the mechanics and the numbers behind prospecting better than he. But I really see a big shift in outbound prospecting in that it has to be connected to a referral, a conversation, something. In other words, I've said this before, your reputation arrives before you do. It is so imperative for any prospecting to be effective that there has to be some reason for that person to say, I'm going to take your call. I'm going to take your message. I'm going to try. In other words, somebody has done something to plant a seed and create a reason for them to talk to you.
Do you think then that cold outbound is dead?
I think cold outbound is dead, but let's define what cold is. Cold is the random phone call. That's dead. What is not dead is when it is targeted. It has to be absolutely targeted and meaningful. Because I've said this for years. If I have the ability to help someone, I owe it to them to reach out to them. So if I know you have a problem and you don't know me, I'm totally game on and I owe it to you to prospect. Is it hard? Yeah, it's hard. That's why if I can have another connection, some sort of a person who knows me or knows them and can make a connection, or there's enough information out on the internet, there's enough something to at least, seed the ground to make my call more beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest shift that I see, and probably the most important is answering the question is why would this person give me their time? And I really go back to the fact that I do quite a bit of quote unquote cold outbound. I do a lot of it because in the business that I'm in, I technically don't really go deep and wide with a lot of clients. Some I do, but for the most, I'm showing up for a speaking engagement, and then I'm referring that to one of my friends, and I'm moving on from there. So my business requires a lot of cold outreach. I'm also not a celebrity or somebody that people necessarily would have heard of. So you really need to be intimately understand what the problem is in that industry and be reaching out with some way to solve that industry. I mean, I think about myself all the time. I don't want to take cold things at all, but there's certain things that come across my email, and if those things come across my email and they have something that's of value to me, I will respond to that.
Yeah, now, this is the thing. You are not really doing truly cold because people are having a meeting. They have a problem. So you've done some pre-selection there. And that does, and it goes right back to Gina's comment, you have the obligation to reach out because you can help them. See, so to me, that changes my mindset when I'm making outbound calls. I make outbound calls all the time, and I love it, but I'm always reaching somebody who I know is going to benefit from my conversation. And that's another piece. We don't just jump in and say, hey, buy from me, buy from me. We know there has to be a level of trust that is created first. This is why having another connection who can introduce you certainly elevates and speeds up that piece, but that trust factor has to be there. In other words, it has to be about them, not about you.
Yeah, Mark, that is such an important. I think that completely changes your energy when you reach out. A million years ago, I worked in healthcare back when you couldn't market doctors. Doctors weren't allowed to advertise, and the laws changed while I was working in this job, and they put me in a marketing role. And my job was to go around and build referrals for these doctors. And a lot of people were offended at what I was doing. And they asked me, how can you do that? How can you go out and sell a doctor's services? And I said, well, for me, it's easy. I said, my doctor does over 1,500 cataract surgeries a year. The average physician in this town that does cataract surgery does 200 to 300. I said, I don't really care if people come to my doctor or not, but I think I have an obligation to let them know that they could go to a doctor who does 1,500 a year, or they could go to a doctor who does 200 and 300 a year. And this is their eyesight. Right? Personally, I would rather be going to a doctor that specializes in this. And that was my attitude, that it was just, I was so doing it for other people. That's why I think one of the biggest things salespeople miss, if you don't believe in your product in your bones, if you're not selling from, I'll use Larry Levine, selling from the heart, if you're not selling, like, I always think to myself, am I reaching out from my head or am I reaching out from my heart? And if I'm reaching out from my heart, it's a really easy thing to do.
Now, I'm going to put a little spin on that because I think it's because you care about the person you're trying to help. Because again, I hear so many salespeople as I work with teams, I speak at various companies, people will sit there and say, oh, we just don't have a good product. Our pricing is da-da-da. And I go, hold on. Your job is to help the customer. Your job is to help the customer. And if you're B2B, you're helping the customer's customer because, again, the customer is undoubtedly selling. And what I have found is this, that I change my attitude when it comes to sales. When I am focused on the belief that I know I can help you see and achieve what you didn't think was possible, and I know that I can help you. And because I'm focused on you, not so much the product. Yes, the product certainly helps without a doubt, but it doesn't have to be the best one because I see too many salespeople making excuses. Oh, because they don't have the best product, the best of this, the best of that. They can't make any calls. Then, hey, I'm sorry. The boat don't float, period.
Yeah, thanks, John. We will keep up the good work. I think another thing, though, is that one of the ways that prospecting has really changed, and something that you really need to be mindful of, is you need to be using multiple channels. I was on a phone call last night with somebody who does outbound sales, and we were talking about the fact that my cadence is basically, I typically reach out with a phone call first. I follow up with an email. I let them know on that phone call that I'm going to follow up with an email. A lot of times that email has a video in it. I really like that whole personal touch. Then I'll follow up with some kind of snail mail opportunity. I'll usually send a book or I'll do something like that, and I always connect on social media. Every quarter I do a masterclass that I invite them to that masterclass. So it's this constant rotation of different ways of reaching them, which, to Mark's point, starts to move me from a cold lead to a warm lead.
And there's so much value in that. Hey, Andy Greenberg is jumping in, and I totally agree. Andy, you're so spot on. I call it pro calling because it's proactivity. It's everything you're doing is being proactive because you can help the customer. And this is what's absolutely key. Now, come back to your sequencing thing. And it's so spot on because we have to understand, what is the purchase frequency? What's the buying frequency? What is the cadence? What's the cycle that the customer is in? Because that's going to very much determine how we reach out to them. For instance, if you're looking to speak at a meeting, you and I speak at a lot of conferences. That's a defined date. They have a defined date where they have to make a decision. So our cadence is going to work around that. On the other hand, many times I'm selling consulting services, I'm selling other things, or I'm selling work that really doesn't have a date. That takes on a whole different cadence. And it also comes down to, are you having to convert or are you having to educate? And that's a big difference when it comes to prospecting, because in other words, are you trying to convert them from their current user to you? Okay, that's a conversion. That's a different conversation. Or are you having to educate them because they've never really gone down this path before. Again, changes how you prospect.
Yeah, I love what Terry Brock is saying here. You build a level of trust where you're sharing great videos, posts, and more based on research gives you an advantage. And again, AI to the rescue, as Terry says. I think that is so true. I think we way underestimate as you're reaching out, and it's why it's so important to connect on social media, because even if they don't go deeply into your posts, they see you out there. They see you. They see little nuggets. And if people can have watched my videos, they're 50% of the way there by the time I'm having a contact, because they know who I am, what I stand for, and what I believe, and what value they would gain from me. So, building that reputation does the selling for me.
Yeah, we got a lot more comments to put up on the screen, and we will, but we want to get to the question. Comes to us from Leslie in Sarasota. She says she loves the show. I listen most every week. So I'm in an industry where the sales cycle has slowed way down. It's tough. I feel like I'm using the right strategies for outbound sales calls, but getting very little response. Can you help? I'll tell you what. First of all, Leslie, stay in the game. Don't back off. I hear this from a lot of salespeople. Well, nobody's responding, so I'm just gonna stop prospecting. No, you gotta keep going. It's like going to the gym. It's like working out. You gotta do it every day. Stick to your routine. These valleys, you will come out of it. But Leslie, you should take a look at some of your content. What is it that you're doing? Because again, maybe it's not messaging. We've talked about this before. How the sales process does change almost every quarter.
Yeah, I think a couple of things here, Leslie. I mean, I'd be curious as we dive into it. I'm just going to make some assumptions. Number one, are you working more of a very defined list? I mean, far too often when I work with salespeople, they get into their database and they have like 1,000 people in there. And it's better to really, hone that down to, a couple of hundred, and really focus on what am I doing to add value? What am I doing to position myself as the expert? What am I doing to get into their, really into their line of sight? And are you being selective about who you're prospecting with? Every single day when I get into my CRM, I just cleaned 3 out of there this morning. I thought, what am I doing following up with these people? This is stupid. They're not only never going to buy from me, but even if they did, it's not in the range of the amount of efforts it's going to take to get the ROI out of what, of really what I have done. The third thing I'm going to tell you is analyze the deals that you have closed. Why did you close those? Like, what did you do from a prospecting standpoint to move them through the cycle? I often say you're the best sales coach out there. Study your own behavior.
I love that. Hey, a couple comments to you, Leslie. Here's what to do. Go back and look at your existing customers, because there's undoubtedly more business from your existing customers, and more importantly, referrals. Because again, this ties into Bryn's comment. There are LinkedIn outbound rules. Yeah, you're right. There's so much value in LinkedIn, because here's something I found. Nobody takes a phone call from anybody without first checking them out on the internet. And when you Google somebody's name, what comes up typically first? LinkedIn. So guess what? You better have a presence out there. And this is why it's so important that you have to have a footprint out there on the World Wide Web before you can even begin to think that you're going to be effective. Now, you might say, hey, Mark, I sell for a major company. What's your company's footprint? What does it look like? I had this yesterday. I was talking with a CEO. We were talking about a company and so forth. And it's interesting, but I immediately began doing a lot of research on that company, thinking, okay, there could be some opportunities there. See, I'm doing research before the need might arise, and this is so key. It transcends both ways, the seller and the buyer.
I think that Bryn just had a mic drop moment here, and if you only take one thing from this podcast, I think it's the line that Bryn's got. When you bring value first, you earn the right to get the conversation. And I think with prospecting, one of the reasons that it's such a struggle for people right now is we're still prospecting like we used to prospect. When I started out in sales, you just called as many people as you could, and the whole goal was for me to get an appointment. that's not it anymore. The whole point is, did you add value? Like, why would I read this email? Why would I listen to your voicemail? Why would I return this call? What are you doing that is going to make my life easier? And Bryn is so right. When you bring value first, then people are open to go, okay, I'm going to get it. I'll be 10 minutes late for my kid's soccer game because this is worth my time to have this conversation.
It's so funny, but bringing value is not about, hey, how's the weather? How was your weekend? How's your day going? That's not bringing value. Bringing value is when you are helping the customer with an insight, an observation, something that is relevant to them and their business. This is what it's not about you. I tell you what, you trying to sell yourself on that first call, unless you're selling pencils, and I don't know who's selling pencils on the phone or by way of email anymore these days, you have to have the conversation 100% focused about the customer, because all you're doing, going back to what you made the comment, it's just really to get the next step. That initial call is just about getting the next step. And if they smell, that all you're trying to do is close a quick sale, you are dead in the water fast.
Yeah. I love what Hayworth is saying here. He says that what creates the real need, or as it's called, the need beyond the need, is that you've basically got to sell. You've got to. A prospect is about helping a client understand why they need your product or service. Like really understanding what it is that you value. And Mark talked a lot about referrals and getting somebody else to open the door, and that's fantastic if you have that option. If you don't have that option, using social proof and using it early, like really putting testimonials high in an email, really helps a lot, because people are thinking, why should I return this person's call? But oh, wow, if they've worked with them, they may be able to do something to help us as well.
Yeah, I love that. And this really comes back to also that you've got to be very defined about outbound prospecting, because it's so easy to come up with excuses. And, if this is a prospecting hour, you've got to commit yourself to it. We've got a good friend, Jeb Lunt, and that's what he talked about, the golden hour, the hour of prospecting. You've got to create windows of time. You've got to create goals. You've got to create a routine, because otherwise you will not wind up making the calls, having the conversations that you need to. You'll come up with any excuse. I want to come back to this whole referral piece, because again, maybe they can't give you a referral, but they can give you a testimony, or minimally you get a story. Stories sell. Stories sell more than ever these days. And the more stories you have that you can just convey in a casual conversation, because people can relate. If you have a story that connects to somebody that, they can see themselves in that position, it is amazing at how much more likely they are to continue the conversation. I'm not saying to start off with the story, but that can come very early in the prospecting phase.
Yeah, such a great point. When I spoke with Jason, he used kind of this 3-term methodology, and he called it trigger, tension, and trust. Is the trigger is, are you even calling somebody that has this going on right now? Like I do a lot of work in the succession planning space. Why would I be calling companies that really don't? It would be better for me to call on companies that are heavily focused on succession. Financial services is a great example of this, right now. The tension is, what's the pain point? Like how are you laying out what that tension is? And then trust, why you? And I think that's I think when you craft emails, I think when you create phone calls, I think when you, do follow up, you think to yourself those 3 words, and you'll have a better outbound conversation.
And the tension is critical, because this is so key. You may have a great solution. You may have an absolutely great solution. But if there isn't some sort of a reason why that customer needs to make a decision now, the immediacy and the importance of the decision. And what I'm looking for is, how does that connect to something else in my customer's life? How does that connect to something else? In other words, if I can do that, then I can begin to say that, hey, wait a minute, I've created tension. Because here's the whole thing. I see so many salespeople. They've got great solutions, but it's a great solution for a problem that does not exist in the mind of the customer. And all you're doing is wasting breath. That's all you're doing, period.
Yeah, great conversation. Good luck. I'm sure you are going to get, after listening to this episode, more effective results. But Mark, what is up on our book this week?
Well, the book, Combo Prospecting, in fact, I pulled it off the shelf here. It's by Tony Hughes out of Australia. Came out about 10 or 12 years ago now, but it's still just as relevant today. And it's about how you combine all the elements together when it comes to prospect. I don't know if you've got some thoughts on it.
Yeah, I love this. I love this book, and I haven't really, uncovered it in a while. But my favorite part about it is his library of scripts and templates for outreach. I mean, I feel like he gives you it's very specific, and it's a very prescriptive book. And I love the fact that it combines all the channels really to think about. He doesn't have one, just like one razor-like focus on it. It's really about creating a really strong strategy around prospecting.
Without a doubt. You ready to jump into the lightning round?
I am.
Top 10 ways to drive inbound leads. Go.
Number one, have great content out on social media.
2, make it easy for people to refer you.
Yeah. Number 3, I would say the flip of that, refer other people so they turn around and refer people to you.
I love that. Hey, make it very clear as to what it is that you do, how you help people. People can put a lot of content out on social media, but they're confused as to what is it that they do.
Yeah, I would say that you need to start to think about moving away from the SEO standpoint. I mean, certainly Gina and Terry can talk more to this, but what are you doing to really be discoverable? If that's is that a word?
Yes, it's a word because, again, we're paid professionals. We can say whatever it is that we want. And what it comes down to is it's being findable on AI. In other words,
Yeah.
It has that's changed the rules completely. So you do have to be seen as the thought expert. And one of the ways you do that is you got to have compelling stories. Have compelling stories that answer various problems, various challenges.
Yeah, I would say invite people to webinars and to master classes that aren't broad but are very pinpointed to a specific problem they might be experiencing and one that you solve.
I love it. Stay in your lane. Stay very niche. Understand who is it that you can serve best. And that's the market. That's the space that you stay in.
Yeah, I think that publishing case studies, kind of going along with your stories, but putting things out there that people can read that really show not only that you've had success, but that you intimately and deeply understand their industry and their challenges.
I love it. And number 10, serve others. Serve other people. And what you'll wind up doing is you will have people talking about you and people will be attracted to you. Hey, great show this morning. Great comments. We haven't had a chance to get them all up on the screen. But that just means, hey, that means we got an audience. That's good. Hey, you've been listening to the Sales Logic podcast. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Something we've said has earned you a single dollar. Consider telling a friend about our show because it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
all of this uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical.
All right, I got to say something. The audience this morning, you have been unbelievable, adding so much value to this podcast. And Mark and I have not forgotten you. We are still working out the details on the Sales Logic Backstage Pass. So look for more information coming soon on that. Until then, go make an outbound prospect, and we'll see you right back here next week for another episode of Sales Logic. We got something really cool in store for next week, so you don't want to miss this one. See you next week.